Morning. Welcome to episode 93 of the Driller Newscast, a weekly update on the news and stories impacting the drilling and water industry. I'm your host, Brock Yordy, and this week in the news, we're heading to Texas, where the Department of Interior has released an additional $80 million to Texas to abandon orphan wells. Initially, they got $25 million last year, and with that, they were able to abandon 700 plus wells. So we're going to discuss that and why you should be diversifying it. Next, we'll be heading to Washington, D.C., where there is legislation in the works right now for compensation for troops exposed to PFAS, primarily firefighters, and how important that is as a discussion right now in our country. Our feature this week, we're going to pause. We're going to remember two industry icons who have passed away. We're going to have that discussion about giving, sharing knowledge, and saying thank you to mentors. We're not going to have a safety topic this week. This is what I want you to think about for safety. We just came out of one heck of a countrywide winter storm, from Nashville to Dallas to 20 below zero wind temperatures in the upper Midwest. This is a bad storm. I want you to think about your near misses, safety incidents, gloves, how winter weather prepared we were. We're going to come back and have this discussion following week because this is very important for us. But right now, you need to be looking in to those near misses that happened last week in this crazy weather that we had. And how do we mitigate that risk? Because just like heat exposure, cold exposure is very similar. And it's something that we all need to be discussing, and our people have to be climatized to. And I can tell you right now, being in Michigan and having a 52-degree Christmas Eve that was green, we weren't ready for this. We need to get our teams prepped. So you need to go out, see what worked, what didn't work, and be prepared for the next big storm. Let's get into the news. For this week in the news, Texas got $80 million for orphan wells. And this came last week from the Department of Interior, who announced a continual investment through President Biden's Investing in America agenda for the state of Texas to continue work plugging, capping, and reclaiming orphaned oil and gas wells across the state. This is another investment in the phase one formula grant awarded since the department announced last July the availability of $660 million to 26 states to clean up legacy pollution sites. Remember, over the next 5 years, it's $4.7 billion. Talking about diversifying our business. You have some time, go out, get involved in plugging these orphan wells. These investments to address hazardous sites will create good paying union jobs, catalyze economic growth, and revitalize and reduce environmental and public health impacts from harmful methane leaks. That was a statement from the Investing in America agenda, which is creating jobs and revitalizing local economies while cleaning up harmful legacy pollution sites throughout the country. Secretary Deb Haaland from the Department of Interior states, "I've seen many of these toxic sites firsthand, including abandoned wells outside of Houston that are actively leaking oil and need to be urgently addressed. With this historic funding, Texas can continue the progress it has made plugging wells over the last year. These investments are good for our climate, for our health of our communities, and for the American workers. Today's $80 million award is the first in what is expected to be a series of annual formula grants awarded that will total almost $320 million for Texas to plug and reclaim orphan wells. As part of this award, Texas will measure methane emissions for orphan wells the state plugs, screen for groundwater and surface water impacts, and prioritize cleaning up wells near overburdened, low income, and tribal communities. This award advances President Biden's Justice 40 initiative, which sets a goal that 40% of overall benefits of certain federal investment flow to disadvantaged communities that are marginalized by underinvestment and overburdened by pollution. The Justice 40 initiatives are huge. We're seeing these as sites for centers of excellences for developing new drillers. There's so much going on here that we need to be involved in. We talk a lot about clean energy, talk about geothermal, what's happening. Here is abandoning orphan wells that are no longer useful, that are toxic. They go on to state, through the president's bipartisan infrastructure law, the Interior's Department is delivering the largest investment in tackling legacy pollution in America's history, including $4.7 billion to plug orphan wells. In August 2022, the Interior Department awarded $560 million in initial grant funding from this bipartisan infrastructure law to 24 states, which included $25 million to Texas to begin work plugging and cleaning up orphan wells nationwide. Since then, states have plugged nearly 6,000 wells, including 730 wells in Texas, and reduced approximately 11,530 metric tons of potential methane emissions. Across the country, investments through the new program are estimated to have supported 7,213 jobs and contributed over $900 million in the last 2 fiscal years. Last January, Secretary Handlin established the Orphan Wells Program Office to ensure effective and accountable and efficient implementation of these historic investments. And you can go back to the Department of Interior, you can look at the EPA, you can see what's going on. You can see the operations that are getting these jobs, and we need good, qualified professionals that know how to work equipment, that can pull tubing, can drop in there, put in that plug, start cementing those wells off. This is a big deal, and you got an extra piece of equipment or you're thinking about it, so lots of great grant money out there. Moving on, we head to DC, where PFAS exposure compensation for our troops is on discussion. And this started on January 10th with a press release from Washington, D.C. This was at the start of the Firefighter Cancer Awareness Month. U.S. Representative Marilyn Strickland of Washington introduced a bipartisan bill that establishes a compensation fund for military firefighters exposed to PFAS, alongside U.S. Representative Bill Posey of Florida. He states, caring for service members and their families is the foundation of military readiness. Strickland states, military firefighters, most of whom are civilians, are directly exposed to PFAS chemicals while on the job and deserve compensation, especially for their work-related illnesses. Our firefighters deserve our utmost gratitude for risking their health and lives in the service to our communities. Congressman Bill Posey states, they need our assurance that we will take care of them like they take care of us. Unfortunately, firefighters are among the most highly exposed to the harmful forms of toxic chemicals through their protective gear, and PFAS-based firefighting foams is what was required to be used for decades. Just another step towards what's going on with PFAS. We have to take care of our troops. We need to take care of our firefighters. We need to think about this exposure and what else. And as we have this discussion right now, there's a lawsuit for a kombucha that ended up having PFAS in it. We can see with our discussion on microplastics in bottled water. And the state of Wisconsin has asked for the release of the $125 million worth of funding to remediate PFAS and lead in their drinking water systems. PFAS is still on the forefront, though we have lots of other distractions. We need to be thinking about this as we are groundwater professionals and how we're going to get involved. On top of that, if we are going to be involved in remediation or any of these situations, we need to understand how dangerous these chemicals are and how easy it is for us to absorb them, for them to affect our lungs, our liver, our kidneys. Industry, be smart. Think about what's going on here. That's our news this week. For our feature this week, I want to take a moment to say goodbye to two great individuals in the drilling industry who are no longer with us. Portadrill icon Jerry Sherman and HDD guru Baroid Industrial Drilling Products, Frank Canon. I think about our industry and the discussion we have about our aging industry and all of the great individuals out there that share knowledge, share that smile, welcome anybody into this industry. And you think about the 50 years that Jerry Sherman impacted our industry and the nearly 50 years Frank Canon impacted this industry. And I think about this quote: "We must find the time to stop and thank the people who make a difference in our lives." It's John F. Kennedy. Gerald John Sherman passed away at the age of 84, surrounded by his family on December 15th, 2023. He's survived by his wife, Dorothy, his family, and friends. Jerry worked in the water well drilling industry for over 50 years and served as the president of the Water Well Drilling Association. He worked at Portadrill for over 20 years, culminating in a move to Colorado in 1978 to become the national sales manager. After a long career with Portadrill, he started his own company, Wellmac Drilling, in 1981. He started a second company, Rotary Drilling Equipment, in 1985 and enjoyed decades of success as an entrepreneur, industry advocate, guru, friend, before selling the company in 2012. He and his wife, Dorothy, enjoyed a long retirement in West Palm Beach, Florida, in the later chapters of his life, making new friends, playing golf, and traveling internationally. I remember seeing Jerry in the Versadrill booth. Obviously, at 43, I've been on Portadrills, but none of them were ever new. But I always knew the contributions and the level of integrity and wisdom he passed on. And he continued that with his time as a salesman and an influencer for Labe. And thank you. Thank you to the Sherman family for the time that you lent him out to us and all the conferences, all the times, and the long, late phone calls getting customers what they need, having discussions. It's appreciative. Hats off. Next, Frank Canon. He left us for the big horizontal drilling project in the sky on January 5th. He's survived by his wife, Marianne, and his family and friends. Frank was an incredible knowledge share for our industry, who I worked with a lot. You know, he started his career in 1975 for the Bayreuth oil field as a mud engineer. This statement was in his obituary, but it's something that I had heard the story many times. He showed up for his first day of work in a lime green polyester suit, which he soon traded for his trademark red jumpsuit. I remember so many times Frank in the field teaching or on a fishing trip in the same red jumpsuit that I'm wearing. Many times jokes, is Frank wearing underwear for that red jumpsuit? What's going on down there? Frank and his family relocated to the Rocky Mountains, where they lived in New Mexico, Wyoming, and then Colorado while he was a mud engineer. When he began with Bayreuth, Frank had no idea that he was to become the pioneer in the emerging horizontal directional drilling industry. In 1991, he returned to his roots in Houston, working in the newly established Bayreuth Industrial Drilling Products Division. By the next year, his role became entirely devoted to trenchless technology execution and education. If you think about it, at that time, this is when we started using HDD for utilities, and the idea that we could drill and not have to tear up, to become surgical. Frank was very influential in teaching that aspect of this industry of the proper flow amounts with the drilling square and all of the discussions. And one of the biggest pieces of his influence was his teaching, his analogies, his ability. And it's wild because Frank had a fine arts degree, a theater degree. And when I talked to the general manager at the time, Bayreuth, while I was in college studying theater and environmental policy and groundwater science, I asked Dave Donald about becoming an intern for Bayreuth Industrial Drilling Products. No idea that I would get to be mentored by these great men and women. And he goes, Frank's a theater major. I got a degree in history. We love fine arts majors. You're going to work out just great here. And I have to thank Frank for blazing the way for that. He had a career that spanned over 40 years. Frank solidified legendary status in the HDD industry. 2022, he got Man of the Year again. In the late 90s, Trenchless Technology Man of the Year. In addition to practical expertise put to use in the field, he is remembered as an outstanding educator and mentor. Yeah, you were, Frank. Mentoring us in the classroom, in the field, going, you know what, Bubba? Just grab that cup and funnel, follow me. We're going to talk about mud. Or over some blue moons at the IQ show, at the UCT, at Vermeer days. So many places where he could shift from joking and talking fishing to talking about the importance of volume requirements to be able to get a flowable slurry so you don't frack out. Um, he did a great job. He traveled extensively, training thousands of people a year and the best practices working with drilling fluids. The drilling square, that's yours, Frank. All of those spreadsheets, all of those discussions about flowability and preventing frackouts, we're not the industry that we are today without that. He traveled the country and the globe, working on sites and teaching mud schools on every continent except Antarctica. He would joke about that. He, you know, Frank was 76 when he passed away. Jerry, 84, massive influencers. And I think of all the great individuals out there who share knowledge, who are in their 70s, who have helped build the industrial drilling industry to what it is today. Got a challenge for you guys, gals, young people, new to the industry, knowledge seekers. This first quarter 2024, big snowstorms happening and crazy stuff. Pick up the phone. Seek out your influencers and your mentors and your friends on LinkedIn or Facebook. Or there's so many ways today to have a discussion about how you were influenced, or how you learned something. I think of Brian Cole's technical service for Bayreuth IDP, and him coming up with the calculations with me to flip an entire slurry pond to Easy Mud Gold at the time, which was a brand new product. And we brought in 2 truckloads of this product, and I helped this construction company mix days and days in a row. And we got it in there, and we got it into solution. We started drilling reverse circulation, and these massive shale boulders started coming up out of the hole. Crash, crash, boom, splash. And I call my flip cell phone. I'm like, Brian, it worked. And he goes, wait, what? That worked? You were our guinea pig, man. And I laugh thinking about that story. But to all of you great teachers, mentors, doers, knowledge sharers, thank you. Thank you to Frank. Thank you to Jerry. Dang COVID, we missed out on being able to do a better thank you to Dean Larimore of National Driller, the salesman with the $1 million smile that helped influence this industry and started the golf outings for the Jubilee. We lost Wayne Nash around that time, and sure, we got to do a little bit of a send-off, but again, massive knowledge shares. And to that point, you don't have to wait. You can start sharing knowledge now. That statement of qualifications, or that wanker that thinks you have to be on a platform every day to be capable of sharing knowledge, is wrong. Thank you to Garen Eubanks for all of the drilling knowledge and everything that you've done to influence geothermal. Look at all of the NGWA past presidents and board members and all that they're doing. Get involved. We all should strive to have the careers that Jerry and Frank blazed and showed what we could do. So here we are, third week of January. Pick up the phone. There's so many ways to contact people. Write a letter. But it's time we say thank you. And we think about that. Last great quote, Winston Churchill. We make a living by what we get, but we make life by what we give. We're a better industry when we're giving for the right reasons, for the promotion, for the next generation. Talked about the Justice 40 and the Center of Excellence is coming. Do it. I see great knowledge shares and mentors on water well guys and groundwater professionals and geothermal professionals at our state shows. We have so many state shows coming up right now. Sit down at the table with the old guys and gals, learn something. Let's glean some more knowledge. Thanks again, Jerry. Thanks again, Frank. Thanks to everybody in this industry that continues to give. Thank you for joining us this week for the Driller Newscast. Lots going on with abandoning orphan wells, the federal infrastructure law, the Inflation Reduction Act, PFAS. We need to make sure we have the right protocols in place and we understand the long-term impacts and why this is so important. Finally, gave you the challenge. Call up the knowledge sharers. Reach out to them any way you can. Say thank you. Glean some more. Let's warm some souls. Frank and Jerry, thank you again for all that you've contributed to our industry and your families, for allowing you to be away from home, doing what you did. Finally, I'm sure everybody's going, man, why is Brock hoarse? How can I not be hoarse from shouting at the Lions-Cowboys game to the Michigan National Championship win to the Detroit Lions winning their first playoff game since I was 11. So I apologize about that. I'll get this moneymaker back into tip-top shape. Go out, be safe, check out thedriller.com. Think about all that we've reflected upon today. And you can start giving back right now. You can write articles. You can share knowledge online. There's many ways of doing it. If you want to do it through the Driller, we welcome you. Cheers, everybody.